say he was also quite critical of these establishments and powerful institutions, and sort of saying how they won't last in the end, and there's been that kind of that French Revolution kind of feel to it. And both Shelley and Blake are kind of part of the Romantic movement, and that's not talking about romance per se, it's about the type of poems that they were writing, so they're a bit kind of controversial maybe at the time, something that was a new wave of writing. So that's that, so that's a bit of context behind it. So going through the poem now, key points from London. So first of all, it starts with I wander through each chartered street near where the chartered Thames does flow. So it's that personal straight away, so it feels like Blake is writing what he sees, and it's in the present tense as well, so we've got that to talk about. Then the next thing, there's a sense of control and power at the beginning as well, with the word chartered, and chartered means mapped out. So the idea that these institutions and these people in power are even trying to control the Thames and map it all out. And this to me is quite similar to an idea in Tissue, which is the quotation, maps to the sun shines through their borderlines. The idea that you can't actually properly control nature, it's going to do what it wants to do, but people in power are trying anyway. So we've got a link there between the two poems. Then, and third point on London is there's a sense of desperation in the poem. Every cry of every man, that use of repetition of every, and the hyperbole associated with that as well. It's an extreme situation. So extreme poverty and despair is everywhere in London, but it feels like Blake is being critical because he's saying no one's doing anything to help, and it is every, it's repeated in the poem. And then we get these kind of images that go together. So we've got how the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls. The idea that the church are turning a blind eye or are appalled by the despair and the cry of this chimney sweep who's obviously paid a pittance living in poverty. And the connotations of blackening is the sense of evil associated with it, like a blackening church. The idea of religion is kind of, there's something kind of a bit sinister there, that the church isn't doing any good at this point. And then we've got another sort of extreme metaphorical image associated with monarchy having blood on their hands, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. So monarchy associated with pain and death, because obviously palace walls, and the buildings are surviving, but what they represent is deteriorating. So again, you can compare that to Tissue, how buildings are presented as less important and people are more important. So the quotations from Tissue, how easily they fall away on a sigh, never wish to build again with brick. So I'm having to read off my notes at the moment, so just let me check and see if there's any questions. Thank you for saying thank you, Jay, that's nice. I don't understand what you people are talking about. I think it's just people having a chat. Okay, so that's my fourth point. And then another quotation from Tissue that links with the idea of buildings is find a way to trace the grand design with living tissue, raise a structure never meant to last. I agree. So the different time of writing, people not seen as disposable now, but they were sort of seen as disposable in London. So yeah, it is. London is annoying. It's just an annoying poem, but whatever. So Kelly, so what's the overall power in London? So the power in London is the power of people in institutions such as the church and the monarchy, and people who've got the power to control the city, and they're not doing anything about the poor people. So there's a conflict there. So this poem is kind of power and conflict and sense of control from the beginning with the idea of chartered. If it comes up as your printed poem, you'll be fine because it's in front of you, and hopefully you'll be able to just go through what I've just been talking about there, and it's very easy to see the techniques that are there. Good question. And if London is your printed poem, I would probably link it to Tissue, just because I love Tissue, but I also think there's quite a contrast between them. So did I actually write this out later to myself? I think I did. Because yeah, kind of carrying on. So there's a whole idea of like the linking between the buildings and the idea of buildings never meant to last in tissue, and then in London there's that critique of the monarchy and the palace, so the palace that goes alongside that and the church, so the buildings there, it's just tough. Yeah, there's a 1 in 15 chance of getting London to write about. Please don't print London. Please don't print London. So I would link it with tissue, and then if I just carry on with structure, so there's a sense of the structure in London. It reflects a sense of control. So people are set in a position in society. So that's that kind of conflict there between classes, like the higher class and the lower class people, and the rigid nature of the class system at the time. The present tense describes it as it sees it then. And this contrasts the free structure of tissue, and the conditional could alter things. So there's a much more sense of choice in tissue, whereas London is like a death sentence, like your life is just utter garbage if you live in London at this time. So the last stanza is talking about the blast the newborn infant's tear, so the idea of not happy about having a child, the marriage hearse, so things that are associated with, like normally associated with new life and positivity, associated with death, because London is so unbelievably horrible. So great. And I've put, yeah, it compares well to tissue because of the buildings, the sense of control, the different kind of way of life, but it's quite a contrast to tissue, I suppose. I think it also could link quite nicely with exposure. See, exposure, coming back again. The sense of frustration that nothing's happening and nothing's changing. The sense of control in the repetition of nothing happens, and the awful experiences of life. So that could be an easier one to link it to. And there is a kind of a critique of being in the war but nothing happens, what we're doing here, and there's a critique of what's happening in London. So an overall critique of authority between those two poems. It just depends on what question you get, and then that'll indicate which poem that you choose. Right, I'll just go back and just check I've not missed anything. Why are we saying thanks, Parky? What's Parky said? What have I missed, Parky? Yeah, okay, so yeah, it's a very annoying poem, yeah, got that. I'm trying to get off on one. Pollution. Okay, we've talked about that. Good. Parky. Yeah, thanks, Parky. Which poems were done last year? So it was Bayonet Charge was last year's delightful poem, and that was settings and bayonet charge. So and then bayonet charge was in the specimen material as well, and poppies was part of the specimen material. So I wonder if we might be, well, God knows, we might get poppies again if it was in some specimen material. Who knows? Any fancy words we can use in our essays to make it just sound good? Better, I'm guessing. Well, definitely use the word enjambment, because, you know, I feel like you've got to be able to talk about that when it comes to structure. Allegory, deep meaning, symbolic meaning, yes, like that, symbolism, is good. How many quotes would you use from the poem which isn't printed? Well, you'd have one for each point, Kelly, so whatever point you make from one poem, for your printed poem, you need to make another point from your other poem, and you need a quote to go with it. But there's probably loads of quotes that you know already. See if you can write down 5 quotes for each poem. Don't give me the maths on that, Jack, I don't want to know. Poppies, yes, poppies. Poppies is good. Poppies is good. Lots in poppies, but